Welcome back. It's Tim and Julie Harris, and this is your favorite daily real estate coaching and training podcast. And we're going to talk about one of our favorite topics. And chances are we're going to be telling you a lot of good stories as a result of today's topic. It is, are you thinking big enough? And I have to say, this is one of the biggest challenges that all of us have throughout our entire lives. Julie Harris?
Yes, that's right. Are you thinking big enough? How to set real goals, how to create real wealth, and take your career to the next level. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to have this discussion in this podcast this time of year is because many of our coaching clients are actually ahead. And I know that a lot of people had a bit of a delayed, start to the year, maybe a late spring. But now that that cat's out of the bag and all that pent up demand is coming out of the woodwork, we've had 13 weeks of new mortgage applications are up. Interest rates seem to have settled into the mid to high sixes. People are buying houses. And so as a result, a lot of agents are actually ahead. It's a great time to recalibrate your goals, jump back in, ask yourself if you are thinking bigger. Have you got goals that are just, easy for you to hit this year, or should you up it by 20% or maybe 50%? So first, you've got to take a minute to congratulate yourself. Real estate was the best decision that you made. You've got no income cap. That's what we're talking about, raising your income goals, perhaps. It's a portable career. I'm coaching 3 different agents right now that are moving their market, getting licensed in new states and embracing, I think all 3 of them are going to go try and go up market a little bit. Thinking bigger, right? Universal need. Everybody's got a reason to move. They're leasing, they're buying, they're investing, they're flipping, right? And perpetual demand. Everybody is thinking about real estate all the time. You only need to have those conversations out in the wild, as we say, to know that real estate is on everybody's mind and you are in the right place at the right time.
Add to this the fact that we are definitely at the beginning of the 25-year real estate boom that's clearly laying itself out. Listen to our past podcasts we did on this. We borrowed a phrase from our president, make housing great again. I'm still sticking with our prediction that that's going to be a major focus of the administration within the next 60 to 90 days with the release of Fannie and Freddie from conservatorship. But that aside, listen to the reasons why Julie and I are firm believers that we are at the beginning stages of a 25-year real estate boom, a continuous improvement in the real estate market. But I'll summarize it for you. Demographics are definitely on the side of continued growth, and it's going to be extraordinary. And there's going to be more inventory. All the things that are required for there to be an unbelievable surge in home sales over the next couple generations. They're all the chips are on the, all the pieces are on the table, and you're in the right place, to Julie's point. I'm going to start out by saying something else too, Julie, before we get to the next point, from dream to goal, the power of the plan. One of the biggest challenges all of us have is that in one way or another, we put ourselves into really golden cages, right? So we create these lives for ourselves that are based on comfort and security. And, you probably got a really nice life. You've probably got a nice living environment. You've probably got a nice community. You probably have, more or less all of your needs met. And you kind of settle into that. And all of the folks around you, maybe even your friends and your family, they're kind of in that same way too. They're, on Sundays we watch football and we go to the kids' activities during the week. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. Congratulations. It's not until you run up against somebody that's similar to you in a different market, in real estate, it's easy to do, where they're, doing so much more than you. And maybe the sale price is even the same. Maybe their backgrounds are the same. Maybe the amount of time that they work is the same, but there's something different about how they work and the intensity in which they work, that when they're working, they get such higher levels of results. And it comes from exposure. So if you're finding yourself feeling complacent, the best thing you can do is travel, frankly. Travel and expose yourself to things that are people, and places that are going to cause you to be insecure. Not insecure to the point where you're going to rock yourself to sleep in a corner, right? Needing Prozac.
Maybe introspective would be a different word.
But really, it's difficult to realize that you've become complacent if everything in your life is seemingly a little bit easy. And then you maybe want to think, well, the whole mission of my life is just to keep things the way they are. The problem with acting like that and allowing yourself to be lulled into complacency is that you will lose what you have, because we are not designed to be static. We're not designed, and I'm not talking about Julie and I'm talking about all of us. We're designed to always be evolving, always be changing, always be improving. And if we stop, then we're going to lose what we already have. Think about it. If you, for example, figured, well, I've just reached peak physical version of myself, right? I don't need to work out anymore. I've got all my nutrition right, all my everything. Well, then you stop doing the things that it took for you to get there in the first place. You're going to lose what you already have. That goes with relationships. That goes with your finances. That goes with every aspect of your life. So your challenge is to be appreciative of the fact that you've probably created a high level of comfort around you and sense of security. And if you haven't, you can. It's actually not that hard to obtain that in America. But if you want to really become the best version of yourself as a human, right? As a son, as a daughter, as a husband, as a wife, as a real estate practitioner, you're going to have to be willing to, and it's not a bad thing, it's a fun thing. Go to markets and rub elbows with people that are living different levels of life that you didn't even maybe know existed. And I'll tell you what Julie and I did. And then we've had a lot of coaching clients do the same thing. We've been married for 34 years this year. And when we first started selling real estate, one of the things we did, this was before coaching, is we took a Mazda Millennia that we leased. It was our first real estate car. And we drove around the country to shadow and to visit with some of these top producing agents that we had heard about through the Howard Brinton Star Network. And sometimes they would do it. They would let us spend a day with them for free. Other times they charged us. It doesn't matter. We just wanted to absorb what they knew. And by doing that, not only did we learn that a lot of them were doing business very similarly without even knowing it. Some of them didn't even know each other. It's just that if you can see how their businesses, once real estate practice, once they start adding staff, they start working in a certain way. Once they start doing more listings, they work in a certain way when they're working. So we were very observant of all these things, and that helped us in our formidable years in real estate. But what we really got out of it was the potential that came from selling real estate at a high level consistently and reading and meeting with those people and seeing what their lifestyles were like. And that was really a huge shot in the arm for us because we had no background like that. We didn't know people like that. We didn't think like that. And by being essentially jumping in the deep end and shocking our complacency right out of our systems, it's never come back. Now, sometimes it creeps back in, but Julie and I are very observant, and we talk about, where are we complacent? We have that conversation. And so like when we go to the gym, are you, okay, so you can do this particular exercise, you can lift this particular weight, and it's not difficult for you, or it's just difficult. It's uncomfortable. It's not difficult. It's time for you to increase the weight. It's easy for you to have 5 listings at all times. It's time for you to have 10 listings at all times. It's easy for you to make $150,000 a year. It's time for you to make $300,000 a year. And then as soon as you say, I'm going to, buy a bigger house, I'm going to earn $1 million next year, this is the goal I'm going to have for myself, your brain almost magically starts realizing and telling you what you need to be doing. And every single thought is going to be the opposite of being complacent and the opposite of essentially wanting to be comfortable. You're going to lose the weight. You're going to save more money. You're going to make more proactive lead generation calls. You're going to be more effective on your listing appointments. You're going to follow our 7-step listing process. So the point of it is, if you're really wanting to think big, the shortcut to thinking big is getting out of your own environment and going to places where people are operating at a different level than you. It might be a different country. Does all this make sense, Julie? You remember all this?
It does. I was remembering the first time that we were in a market where it was 70 degrees in January. That was a new thought. It can be 70 degrees in January. What are these colors that happen in that environment? It could be something like that. It could be spending a little bit more time in an upmarket situation. We moved from, our home market to New Albany Country Club. And when we had that light bulb go off, hey, what would happen if we sold the same amount of houses, but they were all 3 or 4 times as expensive? What would happen? So these are some thoughts. And I think you make an excellent point that some of our listeners maybe have a lack of exposure to that and don't even realize that they are stuck. Maybe they're stuck in a really great place, but they perhaps could think bigger. And that was the impetus of our podcast today is, are you thinking big enough? Are your goals big enough? Because it is a blessing to be in real estate. Nobody's telling you, oh, you know what? Your job doesn't pay that. You can't do that. You're not that kind of executive. Nobody's saying that to you, or nobody's saying, well, if you want to make more, you've got to do that. You've got to go get another degree to do that, or you've got to move across the country to get that job. You can do it probably right where you are, changing your skills. Maybe you move a couple zip codes over. Maybe you think even bigger and you decide that, you know what, you've always wanted to sell real estate in Florida and now's the time to do it. But
One of
it's
the
thinking
blessings,
bigger.
one of the blessings of being real estate coaches and having lived in different environments, and Julie and I've traveled to almost all 50 states and meeting real estate agents, is you don't realize how much potential you have. And I'll give you guys an example. When we've lived in a whole bunch of different states, and we live in Puerto Rico now. And I remember when Julie and I moved to Georgetown, Texas, there were so many really amazing quality people, smart, ambitious, honest, hardworking people in their 20s that we were running into that were just unbelievably fantastic people that if they were in Southern California, and some of these guys were selling real estate, others of them were different industries. But if they're in Southern California, for example, where the average, where there was a lot more opportunity, the environment was different, where there was a lot more velocity of money, people buying and selling more frequently for sale prices that were a heck of a lot more than what Georgetown, Texas was. Like, say, if they moved to Newport Beach or Laguna Beach and they started selling real estate that cost an average of $3 million, whereas in Georgetown, it was $300,000. They did not understand that they would flourish in those types of markets because they've never been there, or maybe they just don't have the impetus to believe that they can. But we know that they can. And when you're talking to people and you get to know people, I mean, when you've done what Julie and I've done for as long as we have, you sort of develop almost an innate, intuitive reaction to people. It's not necessarily judge a book by its cover. It's almost a feeling that you have about them. And I remember very clear when we moved from Georgetown, we were living in Las Vegas and we were also living part-time in Laguna Beach, California. And we moved to Georgetown. I was just amazed by it. Like, had you just plopped up some of those people and dropped them off in some of these more expensive markets, they would have dominated. And we've had coaching clients do the same thing. Julie had a coaching client that was selling average sell price houses in Pennsylvania, I think it was, Julie.
Pittsburgh.
And then she moved down to like Palm Beach or something. And sure enough, she is able to go down to Palm Beach, which was exactly the opposite of where she had sold real estate before. But because she had the work ethic, portable skills, she was able to move from an average sale price that was like 10x what her normal sale price had been.
Certainly
So that's the point. If you don't, like, just start with the assumption that you are complacent, and then write down all the areas in your life that you think you might be complacent. And it's everything. It's going to be physical, how you like, and then you can go, and then it's a lot of fun. Because on the other side of that, when you start saying, well, what would it be like if I experienced this? If I started going on vacations, if I had a house on the lake, if I had more time off, if I were able to donate more money, if I was, if I could upgrade my wardrobe every year, those types of things. Write all those things down and then ask yourself, well, what's standing in the way of those things happening for me? What's standing in the way of me being able to provide those things for my family? And the only thing is, because you're in real estate where there's no one saying how much money you can make, it's really at the end of the day, it's the actions you take that are fortified by the skill set that you develop. So hopefully you're realizing that you've done the heavy lift. Chances are you're listening to this podcast because you've got a real estate license and you are in the greatest country in the world, and you are at the very beginning stages of what's going to be one of the greatest markets in the world. Now, individual markets are not all going to behave the same. So maybe you want to move to an area where they sell prices higher. It makes sense to do that if you can. But do realize that lack of exposure is the greatest killer of not ambition necessarily, but potential, more than just about anything else you can possibly imagine. What are you thinking, Jules?
Well, I'm thinking that whole lack of exposure thought does affect lots of different areas. So you and I both know that agents get uncomfortable, for example, when they go on a listing presentation or they set up showings for a buyer when it's higher than the highest price home they've ever lived in personally.
Yep.
That's an example of lack of exposure because you have a bit of fear of unknown. You're uncomfortable, fish out of water. What if they ask you a question about, something related to a luxury market that you don't know? And that can be overcome by previewing. There are things that you can do to fix that lack of exposure issue. Maybe you're just now starting to think, gosh, maybe I should raise my average sale price. What would that be like? What are the 3 or 4 different ways I could do that? But all of this leads to the same thing, which is it's easy to dream about what could be and say things like, I'd like to earn more money. I need to save more money. I got to pay off some debt. I'd like to live in a warmer climate. But those are all dreams. And I think the difference between people who take action and do actually achieve what they want in life. And everybody else that just says, I know I ought to lose some weight, or gosh, I just need to earn more money. It's that they put it down in writing, they make it specific. They use SMART goals, right? To remind
That,
you the
but
difference between a goal and a dream, right? You've
that's your
got it.
next point, right?
Exactly. That's where I'm
point
leading to.
Point number 3 is from dream to goal, the power of a plan. And a goal is a dream with an action plan, is what she's saying at the
That's
end
the
of the day.
difference.
Right. So goal, it's one thing to say, I want to buy a new Porsche 911. It's another thing to create the action plan for that to happen. When are you going to have it purchased by? What are the action steps that are necessary for that to happen? By the way, in the real estate treasure map, which we give you as part of level 1 of Premier Coaching, it is a fill in the blank business and life plan. It's right there as soon as you enroll. So as soon as you enroll in Premier Coaching, go to the first level, which you have immediate access to. It's completely unlocked, and download the real estate treasure map. Again, that's your fill in the blank business and life plan. And that's going to get your brain thinking bigger immediately. It's going to put numbers behind the words, and then you're going to create action plans on how to set the goals. So please stop. How do I say this without sounding offensive? Don't allow yourself to think about setting goals that are reasonable and realistic, because you're selling yourself short. Start thinking about setting goals that are unrealistic, that you might not ever accomplish. And I'm not
Well, like
saying
if you know how to do it and it seems easy, that's not thinking big enough.
exactly. That's a good way of saying it. Right. If you already know how to do it, and you know you can go from selling 20 houses to 30 houses, you're absolutely not thinking. Now, at a different point in your life, you might be putting more value on less work, and that's fine. So adjust accordingly, obviously. All right. So that is definitely the SMART goal. And SMART goal stands for what, Julie?
Okay, so think of the word SMART, SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So specific, I'm going to call out a new coaching client of ours, Heather. She lives in Houston. We'll call her Houston Heather. Okay. And she has a goal of being more active and getting in even better shape. She's in pretty good shape, but she's specific. Specifically, she's going to do a minimum of 10,000 steps per day. She's going to track it. That is measurable, obviously. It's not just, I need to walk more, I need to get out more. It's 10,000 steps a day, every single day minimum. Is that attainable? Well, yes, she's used to being pretty active. She's just going to be more consistent. Is it realistic? Yes. And is it timely? She's going to do it every day. So she's applying those SMART characteristics to, I want to get in better shape. A lot of times we'll use a financial example. I have never had a coaching client, I don't know whether you have or not, but I've never had a coaching client say, I want to make less money. They always want to say either I want to make more, or I want to save more, or I want to make more and save more, or I want to invest more. These are all the same thing. Going back to raising your GCI. Well, by what? Is that by $10,000 more a month, a year? Is that finally having a year of reserves saved? You've got to be specific. Just saying I need to earn more money, you're not going to do it. It's the same as people who say, well, I want to lose weight, and they get a gym membership, but they don't make it very specific every single day, hiring a trainer, doing all the things. They just say, well, I've got to, lose weight. So if you've got a financial goal, you first got to define, what does that even mean? Earning more. Okay, great. How much more and by when? And why do you want it? What are you going to do with that additional income? Well, I want to save it for a down payment on my next house. Or I want to pay off a $20,000 consumer debt credit card. Whatever it may be, it's got to be specific. Measurable is within a certain amount of time. That's kind of the same as the timely answer. Realistic. Now, realistic applies in different ways to different people. So for example, realistic, I would, it'd be like me saying, I want to be an NBA basketball player. That's not really realistic for me, is it? But maybe that thought started in getting in better shape. I want to be the best at kettlebell swinging in the gym. That is realistic. I can learn how to do that. So again, as we often say, adjust accordingly. But you've got to apply those SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely, if you want to convert a dream into a goal. And the interesting thing about this is when you do that, we've got so many examples of coaching clients that do this regularly. It's almost like be careful what you wish for, because when you apply the SMART characteristics to converting a dream into a goal, your mind, you said it earlier on the podcast, Tim, your mind, your subconscious starts to get to work on that. And you'll notice whenever we do the treasure map with coaching clients and we're going through all of this, especially the financial piece, almost to a person, what do? They go, oh yeah, I got this lead from last week, and that could be a $15,000 check, and that person knows this person, and maybe, oh, and that came from an open house. I need to do more open houses. Your mind gets to work on it, and it proves that you actually do know what to do to achieve those goals. Does that make sense?
Well, it does, but it's funny too. I was thinking as you were talking, this is counterintuitive, but it's fascinating. Though there's more of much higher probability, you know what I'm about to say,
Mhm.
of accomplishing your goals if you don't tell anybody about them. Isn't
I
that
know it is
crazy?
very counterintuitive, but also
It is.
true. We've
There's
read
been
that
lots.
so many places.
We have, but we've experienced it with coaching clients too. They'll set a goal of saving a certain amount of money, or they're going to buy a new car, or they're going to whatever the fill in the blank item is. And then they tell everybody, and then they don't do it. The best explanation for that I read was that something happens that you get the payoff. Like if you say, for example, I'm going to lose 30 pounds and you start telling people I'm going to lose 30 pounds. Damn it, I'm going to do it. This is my year. I'm going to lose whatever. And everyone then starts saying, how are they going to react? Oh man, I'm so happy for you. That's great. Or they're going to say, why do you need to lose 30 pounds? You
You
look
look great. You
fantastic.
don't need to do that.
Right. So what happens is you get all this feedback that's going to essentially give you the same emotional sort of dopamine hit that you would have had having accomplished the goal. I'm going to, buy a new boat. That's my goal this year. Oh, that's fantastic. Yes. And here's a picture of my boat. Here's my dream board. I'm posting on Instagram. Here's the boat. Blah, 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 blah. My life's all about the boat. You drop the probability of you actually accomplishing that goal just goes to almost zero, because again, you're sharing it with people. Weird psychology, but use it. Don't try to understand why it's true. Just use it to your advantage. So when you're setting goals and you're completing your real estate treasure map, which is in the first level of Premier Coaching, just go to premiercoaching.com or click the link below. You don't want to then publicize those goals to a bunch of other people. You can tell your wife, your husband, your partner about the particular goals, because it's always good to set family goals and personal goals is a really great idea. But beyond that, maybe keep all that to yourself. And if you're going to have a dream board, if you want to do some of that, that type of thing, don't put it in a public place. Put it someplace where only you're going to see it, where you're going to be reminded. Where we tell our coaching clients that are that want to have those types of things, visual reinforcements, is we tell them to put those dream boards in their area where they're going to be doing their proactive lead generation. Because when they're picking up the phone to make their proactive lead generation, aka prospecting calls, which nobody wants to do, they're going to see the fact that, hey, if I do this at this level, I'll be able to experience this and travel here and buy this boat, or just all these types of things. You guys get the point? And yeah, that's the key. And so if you continuously get into the habit of setting goals for yourself and then moving towards those goals, the first time you do it, the second time, third time you do it, you're going to be going on a completely different trajectory that you can possibly imagine, because everything in your life is going to be reinforcing the accomplishment of the goals you set for yourself. And you're going to want more of that because it makes you feel amazing, especially as you begin to set more ambitious goals. And again, one of the best ways to supercharge those goals is to get off your duff and go to environments where the lifestyle. Like last August, Julie and I went to Monaco. And I can't say Monaco was completely different than any place we've been before, because we've been blessed to be at a lot of amazing places, but it's way the hell up there.
Yeah.
It was pretty fabulous. And we had a really great time when we were there. And it does recalibrate your that's a very consumptive lifestyle. And maybe that did or didn't appeal to us. But the reality of it is there were a lot of people there that were, enjoying life at a different level, from their 300-foot yachts, flying in on their own private helicopters. And Julie, do you remember that big ass yacht? What was it called? What's the home warranty company? We kept
It
on
was
saying
called the AHS, which was
yeah.
hilarious.
We laughed. We posted pictures. There was this probably the biggest yacht in the bay. It was called the
It was
AHS.
a monster.
That's what it said on the side of it. We were just laughing that that's the home warranty company, spending their billions over it. But who knows? All right. So Julie, let's move on. So when it comes to setting goals, there's 5 distinct areas of life. And again, this is all part of the real estate treasure map you guys get as first level of Premier Coaching. So you're going to want to print it out. I think it's 60 pages. You've been warned. And then take the time to fill it out, because there's a lot of deep thought that's supposed to go in there, especially when it comes to setting goals. So there's 5 areas of life: family, financial, physical, mental, spiritual, and educational. Now, I'm going to give you guys a little, advanced player thing here. There's no such thing as balance. If I just offended you, give me a second to try to explain it. At different points in your life, you're going to have different focus on different things and with different levels of intensity. And as you pass through life, and hopefully you live a nice long life, you're going to find that, for example, when you were younger, I'm just choosing something arbitrarily, maybe family in your 20s wasn't that important to you, or maybe spiritual in your 20s wasn't that important to you. But maybe now that you're getting a little older, spiritual is important to you. Maybe now that you're getting a little older, you're making different decisions. So financial is coming more of into focus for you. So there are the idea that you're going to somehow have this perfectly balanced life where all 5 categories of life are going to be in perfect harmony with each other will cause you to be out of harmony and very, very frustrated. So you have to meet yourself where you're at and give yourself a bit of a break. If you are right now trying to get yourself in really great shape and you set a goal, let's say in 12 months, you're going to run in a real marathon. That's what goals, a dream with an action plan. Now you have a date. Now you have your action plan. What's the action plan? You're going to hire someone that's run in marathons before. You're going to become really obsessed with what it means to run in marathons. You're going to practice every day. You're going to follow what your coach tells you. You are absolutely 100% going to kick this marathon's ass. But what does that mean? It means that you're going to be sacrificing doing other things. You're not necessarily spending as much time with your family or your friends. You're not necessarily spending as much time earning money because you're trying to accomplish a really big life goal you had for yourself. So ultimately what happens is oftentimes, like for example, you're building your business, and so you're really focusing on financial. There are going to be other aspects of your life that are going to be sacrificed or not going to be as important to you. That's okay. Just give yourself a break and give yourself the opportunity to flourish. It was that quote you love, Julie, bloom where you're planted.
Yes, bloom where you're planted. That's basically meeting yourself where you are, flourish in these areas. Well, you're working on those areas. I think about somebody like Chris Leon in Chicago, great agent and broker in Chicago. He is working on expanding his different spokes in the wheel, not just talking to expireds, but also he's going to add an open house spoke. He's going to be face to face with more people. Now, we've talked about this for a while, and that was a dream. Now he's making it real by being very specific. He has a chart that he shares on every coaching call about how many contacts in which areas. He's tracking all of that. That's specific. It's measurable. What are the results? What are the appointments that are resulting from that? And I know that he's going to be successful in this because he's made it a SMART goal and not just, well, I think I need to talk to more people. So you can apply this in many different places.
But let's make a grander point, because we are real estate coaches and a lot of these guys are listening to us because they're wanting to learn how to, sell more houses and make more money. So let's choose financial. So we're going to give you guys, and Julie did a good drill down here. By the way, if you want Julie's notes, you got to go to harrisrealestatedaily.com and download the notes. You can subscribe to the newsletter. Remember to pop over to your normal email and confirm that you want the subscription to the newsletter. It's free, so no downside, and you can get these notes. Now, I want to make this observation because it's kind of fascinating. Everyone thinks that becoming wealthy or rich, let alone wealthy, is something that's really only reserved for a certain percent of people. People believe that with such conviction that they've actually made it true for themselves. That's the reason you have the top 1% and you have the top 5%. Income and wealth has always been, since the beginning of time, and always will be, essentially the more that someone accumulates, the less fewer people they're going to be competing with, right? It's easier to make more money the more successful you become. The competition is all in the building of it. Once you built it and the momentum is working on your side, it's much, much easier. You turn on your computer, you look at your Monarch, your stock market portfolio goes up, your real estate goes up, your other things go up. Then the momentum starts to work on your side. But it's fascinating when you think about money in particular. So rich is where your money works for you and you no longer have to work for your money. That should be a goal that all of you should have for yourselves. In other words, where there's enough money coming in passively every single month that you have, like if you need $10,000 a month to pay your bills, you've easily got $10,000 a month coming in. I'll tell you, one of the greatest shortcuts I've ever seen, and it's only available to real estate agents, is definitely eXp Realty's revenue share program. I know a lot of our listeners, eXp Realty agents. If you're not embracing eXp Realty revenue share, you're missing one of the single greatest opportunities you will ever come across for the sake of wealth creation. Re-engage with that. And if you're not familiar with the eXp revenue share model, you can go to scroll down below, look at the description. You're going to see information about Julie and I's eXp Realty group. There's a video we put up there that explains revenue share. Long story short, it's one of the greatest, and I have to say, least restrictive ways to build passive income that I've ever seen. I actually don't know of anything other than Warren Buffett happening to be your uncle, and he likes you and he's going to leave you some money. That's the only other thing I've seen that works so effectively to help agents build wealth. So you can check out our eXp Realty Group's website. It's down below. Or if you're ready to join eXp Realty and you're looking for someone that's going to be very proactive in your success, feel free to text Julie and I directly. We are officially applying for the job of being your eXp Realty sponsor. And you can text me directly. Don't call, just text at 512-758-0206. And for all you existing eXp Realty agents and you're looking for someone to be a co-sponsor for you, Julie and I are also interested in doing that as well. So if you're looking to recruit yourself and you want your agent you're bringing in to be sponsored by you and by Julie and I, that is something we're open to as well. All right, so here's the thing. There are more successful people, more people that are well off financially than there are people that have long-term marriages or have really great health or have really great, all the other things. So that should tell you that it's actually easier to build wealth in the United States than for most people than it is to do just about anything else. Julie, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think that gets back to our original point of the blessing of having a real estate license,
Yeah.
And how many people have we known that have or coached using real estate as the impetus to building the life of their dreams? Tons of people. It's absolutely possible. And it's exciting to see agents set those goals and achieve them. It's funny how that progression changes over the coaching relationship, because one of the things that we have to do is catch them after they've achieved that and say, okay, well, what's next? Because you can get to that level and achieve a bunch of things and you're like, oh, that's so awesome. I had the best trip and I had, I paid off the credit card debt and I bought a new house and I did this and this and this. Okay, so what's next? Let's keep you thinking bigger. Remember, the name of today's podcast is Are You Thinking Big Enough? Because you can accomplish whatever you want to in life through real estate. You absolutely can, but it's got to be very specific and planned out and step by step. You can't just roll out of bed tomorrow and say, all right, I'm going to double my income. That would be awesome. I think a lot of people would love to do that, but you've got to take the steps to do it.
Let's do
You've
some
got to
math.
be intentional.
Let's do some math, okay?
Sure.
So even after inflation, I think everyone will agree. You might want to get a pen and paper, Julie Harris. Everyone will agree, or I can do it if you don't.
I've got a math example in our notes, but
okay, but your number's too small.
Okay.
I think even after inflation, Julie put $60,000 down. Come on, woman.
For 6 months of living expenses, that's all.
Even after inflation, I think everyone will agree that $1 million a year is still a pretty amazing goal,
Absolutely.
right? You can have a really great lifestyle and just about, I would say, every damn market in the United States and probably even the world. It's fascinating to be the top 1% in Monaco, which has the highest density of millionaires of any place in the world, which is the most expensive. I think Monaco's cost per square foot is $5,000 a square foot. Yeah. So it is expensive to the 10th degree. Yes. In order to be the top 1%, you have to have a net worth of something like $5.5 million.
Yeah, it's not 50, it's 5.
Yeah, it's 5. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So let's just say that, for example, you want to have $1 million. You want to make $1 million. That's your goal. We talk about this in our book, Harris Rules. One of the first goals is when you're thinking big, is to sell 100 houses per year. The next goal is to make $1 million a year, gross revenue. The next goal is to net $1 million in net income. And the next is to, make $1 million per year in passive income that's not from actually the sweat of your brow. We talk about this in our book, Harris Rules. But let's say, for example, your personal overhead is, let's say you're living a really nice lifestyle and it's $240,000 a year. Okay. That includes the private schools and the restaurants and the excessive amount of money on Amazon. Julie Harris, I'm talking about you. Mm-hmm. That includes, those types of things, right? And let's throw some extras on there. You're going to want to spend some money on, just this and that. So we're up to 240 for lifestyle, and let's throw another 60 grand on there for just tchotchkes, whatever you want to spend your money on. Okay, there it is. All right, so you're living in Florida, let's say. Now, if you're living in California or one of the other states that have high state taxes, and you earn $1 million, you're going to end up paying, if I can do it in my head correctly, 53% to federal and state taxes. So if you're living in a place like California, you're going to be actually
your million is now 470,000.
or thereabouts, right? So let's say you're living in one of the tax-free states. I think it's just 13 of them now, Julie, isn't that right?
That's right.
Yeah. So let's say you chose Florida. Let's say you live in Miami. Let's say you live in, where's that area that we went where Orlando lives, that fantastic neighborhood we were in?
Oh, it wasn't Boca. Was it Boca?
No,
I
it
can't
wasn't
remember the name
Boca.
of it now. It'll hit me in a second.
It was where the Roosevelt Hotel was.
The Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt. Yeah. But anyway, you'll
Coral
remember
Gables.
Coral Gables. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that place is gorgeous. You guys,
Stunning.
if you're in southern Florida and around Miami, go to Coral Gables. Oh my gosh, it's so spectacular. You want to tell them a little story?
Which one?
Okay, so we were driving around through Coral Gables, and it was like gorgeous house after gorgeous house after gorgeous house. And then occasionally you come across a house that was clearly built in the 80s, looked like something out of Miami Vice. And we jokingly said, we're from Ohio. We jokingly said, well, this community must have been built by all the drug dealers back in the 80s. And then the person driving us around, without batting an eye, said, well, absolutely true. So the money that was flowing through.
Well, I guess it was.
Yes, it was. The whole business of bringing cocaine in through Southern Florida had a lot of ways built. And then he took us to these different communities where the country club was literally developed with money from the illegal cocaine business. It was, anyway, I thought that was a funny story because we were just joking and it wasn't even a joke.
But these were like $30 to $50 million houses.
Yeah. So fast forward.
Houses, that's like one house.
Right. So fast forward, he was showing us this house, several houses that were these massive things. Like you're driving by this damn thing, going like 20 miles
That's
per hour.
on zip code.
It takes like 10 minutes to get past it. And so the houses were originally built by people, selling illegal drugs. And this one in particular, and there was like several like this, were now owned by CEOs of the major pharmaceutical companies. So I just thought tying all this thoughts together was kind of funny. So in Miami, at least that area is still funded largely by the drug business, but now it's legal versus the illegal. So there you go. There's my story. All right. Let's say, for example, you want to earn $1 million. And let's say, for example, you're in a market where your average commission is $15,000. Now you have taxes, but you're living in Florida, so you don't have state taxes. So that's good. You don't have any crazy write-offs. You don't have any rental properties. You're not doing anything like that. So let's assume that your effective tax rate is going to be, let's say with some adjustments, you're going to be paying 30%. So you make $1 million, you're going to be paying around $300,000 in taxes. Your personal overhead per year, would we come up with, Julie, $300,000 too? Okay, so that's going to give you a great lifestyle. You're going to pay all your taxes, and you're still going to have how much left over after taxes, after lifestyle? Julie wasn't expecting that. 400 grand.
Yeah.
Right?
That's about right. Yep.
So with 400 grand, here's what you're going to do. You're going to then take 100 or 200,000 of that, and you're going to put it in the S&P 500. Maybe you're going to finally buy the Ferrari you've always wanted to buy. Now, so you've now experienced, you've gone to Coral Gables, you've seen the beautiful houses, you've realized you could have this lifestyle. Let's say you're living in a part of Florida now where you want to actually max out what you're capable of accomplishing. You take our advice, you go get out of your environment, you're forcing yourself to be out of complacency. You're driving around, realizing around every street corner is a new Rolls Royce. Okay, this is crazy, right? Nothing you've ever experienced before. And then you realize, you get this pang. You remember this podcast. You say, you know what? Can I actually make this happen for myself? Can I actually do this? And you meet like our great friend, Orlando Montiel, and Orlando's done that for himself. And a lot of our other great coaching clients in Southern Florida. And you're going to say, you know what? I could do this for myself. I could apply the skill set that I have. I could move to sell real estate down here where my average sale price is now 8 million, whereas right now it's maybe 300,000. And why not? Why is this not meant for me? Because if it's meant to be, it's up to me. And I'm just choosing to have this lifestyle for myself and for my family. And then you make a plan, and then you execute the plan. And then you say, okay, what's the plan? Well, I want to be moved down to, Coral Gables within the next 12 months. I'm going to be renting there when I first move down there. How much money am I going to need to start up again? I need to get a Florida real estate license. I'm going to hit the market with some listings. So I'm going to go after some expired sellers. I'm going to choose the EXP.
You're being specific, in other words.
Right. I'm being specific and I'm making plans. So I'm going to say, for example, I got to get a Florida real estate license, and you're creating plans under each of these things. And so what's the checklist for the Florida license? You take it online, you sit for the test, you can take that test online too. You've got your Florida real estate license.
And you can give yourself a deadline on that.
Exactly. Give yourself no more than like 60 days. Then you're going to say, I'm going to choose a real estate brokerage. So I'm going to choose EXP Realty Luxury, and that's who I'm going to be with. I'm going to join with Tim and Julie Harris. All right, that's decision made. When am I going to have that accomplished? As soon as I get my license in Florida. All right, then you're going to say, you're going to, every single one of these goal things that you have set for yourself is going to have many action plans. A goal is a dream with an action plan. So you're going to have many action plans, and the goals are dreams with action plans that have a specific done date. And then you're going to create a date when you're going to have these things accomplished by. You're going to go down there. You're going to spend a weekend down there. You're going to walk the streets. You're going to breathe the air. You're going to rub elbows with the people. You're going to just experience what that lifestyle would be like. And you're going to lock yourself in emotionally to wanting that more than you've ever wanted anything in your life. If you're lucky, very lucky, you're going to have a spouse or a partner that's also going to love something like that too. You're going to maybe have to help them think bigger, but they will as well. Don't give yourself forever to think about this. If you think that, oh, I can do that in 5 years, give yourself 12 months and maybe it takes you 18 months, but so what? It didn't take you 5 years. You guys get the point? Then what do you have? You have this big goal. You've created these little mini action plans with done dates, and then you start executing the plans. Then you start getting these things done. Hire a coach if you need to hire a coach to hold you accountable to hitting your dates when you're going to have these things done by. But that's how you think bigger and accomplish more things in your life. You don't, just because you were born in a particular environment with particular family members and a particular education level or a particular IQ, a particular aesthetic, doesn't mean you have to have that be, or those things be, the limiting factors of what you're able to accomplish in life. Julie, what are you thinking?
I was going to say, if you have any question about this, just go to our Instagram page and see what we looked like when we got into real estate, how much we've changed. Don't just take it from us. Take it from us. Yeah. But we've had so many great coaching stories. You know, it's something that I really love taking agents through that process. And sometimes it's just the little things like, you know, go choose the gym you want to work out in so that you can build your center of influence. Make 3 new friends in that new market on this trip. Compare this VRBO to do something different next quarter in a different part of that particular area that you think you want to sell in. Take some more training in the MLS and with your new license. You know, it's an incremental thing, but in the case of moving to raise your average sale price and upgrade your lifestyle, you also have to realize that if you're leaving an environment where your average sale price is 400,000 or 500,000, like most of the country, and you're moving to a place where your entry level is going to be 3 million, you don't probably have to sell as many houses as you think you do. And maybe now you want to have 3 to 5 active listings at all times instead of the 10 that you used to need to get through the winter from where you used to be coming from. You know, you have to adjust and know your numbers and work through that. And one of the things, you know, even knowing like, how would you break into that? You know, earlier in this week, or maybe it was last week, we were talking about I think it was Monday's podcast, how to break into a luxury market. There are steps that you take that will get you there faster. So you can implement those. You can put deadlines into those. You can make a checklist of what do you need to learn. You can preview so that you know what you're talking about. All of those types of things. And I think that's super fun because one of the advantages that you have when you change markets is you can completely change. You can upgrade what you're doing. You can have 3 new listing outfits. You have the most beautiful pre-listing package you've ever seen. You can do luxury home brochures, and you can make that persona that you want to be incrementally faster because your skills are portable and because all of the experience that it took to get you here, you don't just lose that when you decide to think bigger. It gives you more power because you have that experience, right?
You're
It's
more
different than
adaptable.
like totally changing careers.
You're more adaptable than you give yourself credit for. You
Right.
actually have, humans are, look how fast we went from pre-COVID to COVID to, okay, now we're all wearing masks. We're not supposed to be closer to each other than 6 feet. Look how fast we went from,
And now we're over all that.
and then like, oh, COVID's over. Oh,
Not doing that
okay.
anymore.
Yeah, don't have to wear masks anymore. Right. I was cleaning out one of our cars the other day and I found a package of masks in the car. I thought I'd take a picture and post it on Instagram, but I have a feeling the reactions would be negative
Probably.
in any event. But the point of it is you're more versatile and adaptable than you give yourself credit for. You're capable of way more in your life than you're giving yourself credit for. You owe it to yourself. You know, when you like, we're blessed with this little wonderful human. She's 11, and kids have no limitations of what they can see their futures being. And it's incredible. I had these conversations with her where we'll just talk about, you know, Zoe has like no absolute belief that she can't do whatever she sets her mind to. Now she's short, so I think she's now realizing that she's never going to be a basketball player, but that's okay. So
Didn't
she's
really
sort of
want
like
that anyway, so it's good.
yeah, right. Her mind is working through kind of like, okay, well, these are the gifts and the talents that God gave me. And so these are what's going to work, what's not going to work. But at what point in our lives, and I'm looking for Zoe to show any signs of starting to lose that sense of possibility. But at what point in our lives did we decide to basically trade in what we're capable of? Why did that happen? Some people say, well, it's organized education. Maybe. Some people say it's this, some people say it's the other thing. And they try to create these big, sociological sort of Rubik's Cube reasons why, but I'll tell you the real reason why. And I'm confident what I'm about to say is true. It's because people are too apt to want to just be comfortable. That's why. And because society, well, I won't even say that. That sounds lofty. Because most people will go their entire lives wanting to go from a comfortable, warm bed and then, environment, and then getting back there as fast as possible. And that becomes their daily routine, just going from comfort to comfort to comfort to comfort. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but what I'm saying is being lost along the way is you had dreams when you were an 11-year-old kid of experiencing things and doing things and going to Monaco and maybe even having your own AHS yacht. I don't know, of having all these things and or having experiences or having relationships or maybe you wanted to run in a marathon. It doesn't always have to be materialistic stuff. Don't get stuck there. But you gave it up. You decided it wasn't for you. Was it because why? You decide. And Julie, I want you to take them through. I don't remember who you learned this from originally, but when you're trying to ascertain as to whether or not something is the truth, there's 3 questions, I think. Do you remember?
3 or 4. Yes, that's thinking about your own personal beliefs. So you start with, what is the belief? What am I believing? Maybe I believe that I don't have it in me to go to the next level, whatever it is. Okay, I have this belief. The second question is that absolutely true? And sometimes that's very hard to prove that it's absolutely true. But the third question is, who am I because I believe that's true? Well, I'm somebody that doesn't really have a real starting time every day. I don't really keep a schedule. I guess if I don't believe that I can do it, maybe I'm taking the actions that are making it so that I'm not actually doing it. Who am I because I have that belief? And then the most important question is the fourth question, which is, what if I didn't have that belief? Who would I be then? And what would I be doing differently if I didn't believe that I couldn't do it? There's another quote that says, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? I think that's related.
Let's make it practical.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is somebody listening that thinks they're too young or they're too old. You can choose whichever one. And let's break it. Let's go through the scenario. Like when you and I got into real estate, we were in our early 20s. We did our first transaction. We were 22 and 23, our first full year selling real estate. We sold over 100 homes in real estate, and we were surrounded by people that were telling us we were too young. And Julie was making fun of us for the pictures that we posted on Instagram of our first year in real estate. You guys should really go look at them. If there's proof that you can get better looking as you grow older, it's Julie. I mean, she was cute when she was younger,
Me too,
but
mister.
she's really pretty now. Oh, Julie, I was George Clooney's, yeah.
Body double.
Yeah. Body double. Exactly. Hair double now.
Yes.
Anyway, so yes, the reality of it is that if you, for example, believe that you're too old to accomplish, what you want to accomplish in life. And I say, Julie, that's what we run into more often is we run into folks that think they're too old. I see that when I'm talking to people about joining EXP, when they're talking about coaching. So let's walk them through. Let's say we're targeting somebody who's 63 years old. Maybe they've had some ups and the downs in their life, personal and professional and financial. They have a little bit of financial security, certainly not enough that they could ever realistically expect to retire on anything other than just, Social Security. And so they're sort of resolved that their best days are behind them and that sort of thing. And there's a lot of people, a lot of Americans that are feeling that way, younger baby boomers, and maybe some of our generation, Generation X. So take them through the exercise of asking themselves those 4 questions.
Okay. So you believe that state the belief is the first thing.
I'll do it. I'll role play.
Okay. Okay. So what do you believe?
I am too old to succeed.
Okay. Is that actually true? Are you 100% certain that that's true?
Okay. So you hover there. How would you know, dear listener or viewer, if that were true? How would you know? And I'll tell you, this is where it gets interesting, because if you're in an environment where everybody else your age has essentially given up on life and you're belief structure is coming from your environment of complacency, then you're going to, in your mind, assume that that is what 63 years old is supposed to be like. That's what you're going to assume. And that's where a lot of us are stuck. And that's where we get stuck. And that's, again, the reason why we give up too easy on accomplishing our things in life. Like, what if your prime time in your life isn't in your 20s and your 30s? Because, you know, in your 20s and 30s, for most people, unless you're born with a silver spoon, kind of sucks.
It's kind of stressful.
It's stressful. You've got no money. You're building your career.
It's all up to you now.
Chances are, yeah, right. Chances are you've got a lot of screamers in your life in the form of children, you know, and you've got a lot of debt probably. And so you're thinking, well, that's the peak time of my life. I don't think so.
No.
I mean, the peak time of your life is probably now. Okay. 63-year-old person is what I'm talking to you. All right. So you have no real definitive proof that being 63 is essentially too old. Matter of fact, if you were just to do a little bit of research, fire up your chat GPT and ask it to make a list for you of the top 100 people from history who've accomplished their greatest levels of success, 60 years and older,
There's tons of them.
Tons of them. And
Yeah.
ready for this? Most people do not become millionaires until they're in their 60s.
Well,
So
it does take a while, doesn't it?
it does.
Yeah, but see, your point you're making is also from earlier about lack of exposure, right? So maybe you're believing that you're too old and you don't have it in you. And, you know, you're quite certain about this, question number 2, because maybe you don't know anybody who's 63 who really has it going on and is actually at their peak, or maybe not even to the peak of their career. Maybe that's all it's going to take is for you to know 2 or 3 people that are exactly like you want to be.
And that's
you told the story about when we would, before coaching existed, we would shadow other agents, right? I mean, I was telling the story to a coaching client the other day. If you remember, one of the reasons we got into real estate is because we met JP at the Snowy open house. He was like 2 or 3 years older than us. We were in our early 20s. He might have been 25 at the time. And I will never forget, like, I think we were just going to open houses at the time because there's nothing else to do as everybody was snowed in. And I remember
we didn't have licenses. This is before
we didn't have licenses back then. And he had like this huge, like 12-foot tall snowdrift with this open house sign on the top. And we're like, all right, let's see what that's about. And I'll never forget him. You know, we were in conversation and he sits back, he goes, you know, I made $100,000 last year. And you and I were like, selling real estate. Isn't that interesting? But that was a story of exposure at the time.
And we had
and
to
I
help
don't
them.
think that we knew that many people that were in their earlier mid-20s that had a pretty decent income like that.
And we had to help him push his Volvo out of the snowdrift. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. That's right.
Well,
And see, that got our gears rolling. Now, had that not happened, I think eventually we probably would have gotten into real estate, but maybe not as early, because we had just that one experience of exposure can change everything. And it doesn't have to be face-to-face, person-to-person. It could be what you said. Go to ChatGPT and ask, who are the most successful people that didn't find their success until they were over 60? Tell me their stories. And then you can relate to that. And you can go, you know what? Maybe question number 3 is the important question. Who am I? What am I doing or not doing because I've got that belief? And number 4, what if I lost that belief and I acted more like those people? What are they doing that I can also do where I don't have to reinvent the wheel? How could I change that belief and stop thinking like, oh, my ship has sailed? Sometimes it does get down to exposure.
And I have to say, one of the other big predeterminants to your level of success is the amount of action you're going to take. Action is not working on your mindset. Sorry. Action is not reading every pseudoscience self-help book at Barnes and Noble. Action is not working on your dream boards and all these things, right? Julie and I are giving you educational stuff, but we're trying to make it as practical and tactical as possible. So you got to get it out of your own heads. I don't know who said this, but you don't judge a man or woman by what they say, you judge them by what they do. So you need to be somebody that's a doer, not someone who's planning on doing things. And no matter how old you are, no matter what your health is, I had somebody that joined with us at EXP Realty who had a heart transplant, Julie, and he was in his 60s. I know he listens to this podcast, and I remember his name, but I'm not going to say it. So he had a full-on heart transplant. He was out of action for a year. He joined EXP Realty. He's in our premier coaching program. He wants to, if I remember correctly, he was set specific goals for him and his wife, but what he really wanted to do is he wanted to leave money behind and for his grandchildren and things like that. And it maybe he felt like that prior to his operation, but I'm guessing that having that really profound experience, he told me, Julie, I didn't tell you this. He told me he actually met the family of the guy that the heart came from.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
I know. It is
Well, that
great.
would be life-changing, wouldn't it?
Well, it does it,
Pretty
but
significant.
so that'll crack through your own complacency because then you are in you have a very intimate relationship with the finite nature of life when you've gone
That's for
through
sure.
something like that. But what if you were to decide that you're no longer too old, you're no longer too young, you're no longer too not educated enough, or you're racist, all these things. What if you just set all that crap aside? Because the more you realize that all of those things are just a lot of times they're things that other people have put in your path to you accomplishing what you wanted to accomplish. Maybe when you were younger, you didn't get very good grades and people called you dummy all the time. Maybe when you were younger, you were a fat kid. So you grew up thinking you were fat. You don't even realize now that you're beautiful. You don't even realize that you're never dumb. You just thought that all the stuff that they were saying was stupid when you were a kid and you were smart enough to know that,
Uninterested.
you're uninterested, right? I mean, that happens to a lot of kids. They label kids nowadays with ADHD and what's the other thing? Every
All
damn
those
kid's got
labels.
some sort of it problem. And every time I hear, every time I hear anyone say that, and it's usually coming from teachers, and I know I'm going to offend somebody, but this is an interesting thought, I think, is that maybe the kid isn't the problem. Maybe you're just boring. Maybe you
Could
need
be.
to do a better job of essentially being a teacher so you can engage even the kids that are a little bit harder to reach. Maybe it's not a kid problem. The kid doesn't need to be on 14 kinds of drugs. Maybe it's a you problem and you just need to get your game on.
There's a
That's a,
famous story about one of the original stars of Cirque du Soleil. I can't remember the name of the person, doesn't matter, where she kept on getting in trouble at school for being really fidgety all the time and just like can't stay in her seat. And like every time music comes on, she just moves, crazy. And so the mom finally took the kid to a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist is like, tell me more about this, whatever. And he's like, all right, let's do an experiment here. I'm going to turn on some music. I think it was classical music. And this kid just starts dancing around and was the happiest kid you've ever seen. He's like, put her in a dance class. She's not interested in math. Just put her in a dance class. And this kid goes on to be like this crazy Cirque du Soleil star. To your point, maybe it's the topic.
well,
I-
Zoe, our daughter is a fidgeter, like what you just described.
Very much.
And the teachers who are teachers are really wonderful and did
Mhm.
a great job. And you worked really closely with them. Zoe wouldn't settle down. She liked lots of action and all these types of things, but she's also really smart. She's a straight A student. They want her to be National Honor Society or something next year. So, but they figured, well, Zoe's got to be Zoe. And so they gave her little fidgets, little things that she can do to keep
Yep.
herself physically occupied. She doesn't really need those anymore, but for that time in her life that she did. So
Helped her think.
maybe you need a fidget right now. Maybe you need something to help you push past your malaise. Because here's the thing, guys, and this is really truly the bottom line. You only live once and you are dead a super long time.
Possibly
Depending,
forever.
yeah, Bill, yeah, you're dead for a
Who
super
knows?
duper long time. And don't be so like, you know, when you set a goal for yourself, whether it doesn't matter what the goal is. Have you ever noticed how things start to align behind the accomplishment of that goal? When you set a goal that you truly feel, again, don't broadcast it to the world, but something that you're in alignment with, it feels like an epiphany to you, feels like an aha moment.
Mhm.
That's some kind of spiritual strength and energy that I've always felt, and Julie's and I have always believed comes from God. So when you're on the right track and you get that spark of intuition, of, people call it an epiphany, whatever it is, you gotta embrace that because you don't get too many of those in life. And maybe you've gotten one of those feelings while you're listening to our podcast today. Don't just set it aside. You've got to really build on it. And here's the way you supercharge that. And even if you haven't felt that, you can't remember the last time you felt that. Maybe you've never felt that. The way you can create it is by choosing something that is in alignment with your soul, a goal that you have for yourself. And again, it's okay if it's something materialistic. Materialism is not inherently an evil thing. It's evil when it becomes your, your religion. But let's just assume you want a nicer house. Let's assume you want to spoil your kids at Disney World. You want to do the VIP thing where it's $400 an hour. Let's just assume that you have aspirations to really accomplish amazing things in your life. And it's going to take a lot of money, but it really, really make you really feel amazing inside just by saying that you have that goal for yourself. Like, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be incredible if this Christmas I could take my 3 little kids and I could have this experience and I could really, I could have this life for them. What if you were to actually make that true? You feel it. You're emotionally connected with it. Don't tell them. Just keep it to yourself. Now, what will have to happen financially for you to accomplish that goal? And then what almost happens almost magically is that you're going to start figuring it out. Your brain is going to start shooting off ideas. Okay, you got to do better job lead follow-up. You better sure as hell join Premier Coaching, get your 7-step listing process done. Well, crap, you know what? If you just took 10 listings and you sold 9 of them, you're going to more than accomplish your goal. Your brain is going to start answering the question. It works that way for everything that you want to accomplish in life if you allow it to work for you. But if your only goal is to go from comfort to comfort to comfort, you're going to have time, decades will pass you by. And that's how most people are. Most people are not trying to accomplish things that are in alignment with their souls. And so they just sort of lull themselves into complacency. They let life get by them. And then I think some of them, and I know older people like this, they'll look back and they'll say, I wish I would have. I know I could have. I wish I wouldn't have, all those types of, those thoughts are also very destructive. Stop yourself from thinking like that and instead say, you know what? Go through Julie's 4 questions. Can I still take that trip to Paris? Why not? Can I still buy that new Ferrari? Why not? Can I still build the wing for my church? Why not? Why can't you? If you're still alive, you can do whatever you set your mind to. What's holding you back? The belief that you have about yourself? Is that a true belief? I mean, do you actually know what you believe, what you're saying? Is it true? And who would you be? What could you accomplish with your life if you no longer felt that way? That's extraordinary. It's kind of scary, but it's so unbelievably giving to yourself, but giving to your family, everyone you love, giving to everyone that's paying attention to you. Like, that was old Bob. That fat bastard is 63 years old. Now look at him. He's on the cover of Men's Health. And that guy's going to Paris. And did you see he's driving a new Ferrari?
Do you owe it to your future self to have these thoughts?
Yes, you do. And you owe it to your future generations to have these thoughts. And what's the downside? What's the risk? What are you losing by thinking like this? And nothing. What are you gaining? Everything. You're not losing your security. You're not losing your sense of comfort. You're gaining everything you want in life. So that's our little hopeful gift to all of you today. Thank you for allowing Julie and I to be in alignment with our highest and truest purpose on this planet, which is being of service to all of you. So Julie, thank you for a great outline for today.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for your great thoughts and contribution. And, the thing is that's one of the great blessings of having a long coaching career is that we have all of these success stories and all of the process and all of the, the great agents and friends that we're so proud of for taking action on these things. And it's amazing that one tiny thing, getting your real estate license, can have such a massive impact to your life, because everything you talked about, whether that's building the wing to your church or finally taking your kids on a vacation or you going to Paris, whatever it is, there is an equation behind that gets to how many listings would it take to sell how many homes to pay for my lifestyle, pay my taxes, and also pay for all these great things that I want to have for myself and my family and to contribute. There is some math behind that. It's not as hard as people make it.
So thank you for allowing us to be in alignment with our highest and truest purpose, which is being of service to all of you. Have a fantastic day, and we'll talk with you on the show tomorrow.